This is Professor Raymond Noby, Department of Ancient History, log entry number 2. I believe I have made a significant find in the castle of Cantor. Having journeyed there with my wife Henrietta, my daughter Annie, and Associate Professor Ed Getley. It was in the rear chamber of the castle we stumbled upon something remarkable.
Astro Radio Z.
Once again, you ask the same shit you ask every week. But I'll indulge you, you creepy English tart. I'm here for my weekly stash of Teddy Mags, my favorite choco bar in the whole wide world, Toblerone, and my lotto tickets. Who bought a single? I have one!
Your solution.
Are you a sleaze fan old enough to remember late 80s DNA horror? Well, welcome into our retrospective on the grandmother of all DNA cheapie franchises, the Witchcraft series. Join us for what is slated to be a trilogy of episodes. This first episode brings host Derrick Carey, Mark the Movie Man, Brian Kirst, Glenn Buettner, and Scott Davis face to face with their own cinematic mortality, and the limits of endurance as they watch Witchcraft 1 through 4 and attempt to make sense of what they have done. To keep up to date with the various projects of Derrick Carey and Rabbit Child Films, follow him on Facebook and Twitter. Also, follow Astro Radio Z on Facebook, Twitter and the Tumblr page where you can find all the new episodes and a selection of some of the best classic Astro Radio Z shows of the past. Now, on with the show.
It's not because of you that I sit this one through. It's not because of you that I'm still in love with what I do.
Welcome to another episode of Astro Radio Z. I'm your host, Derrick Carey, and I'd like to thank all of the people that have been listening and tuning in and following the new Twitter page that I put out there. We've been getting a lot of good responses to the episodes we've been doing, so I want to thank you for following me. So tonight, we're going to do another one of our retrospective episodes. We did one a while back for the Nightmare on Elm Street series. Well, tonight, no, we're not doing Friday the 13th. Would that make sense? You know, you did Nightmare on Elm Street and you're going to do Friday the 13th next. No. Are we doing Halloween?
No.
Mark the Movie Man, who you know he was going to be here, he says no. Are we doing Leprechaun?
We should.
Yeah. We could have done Leprechaun. Jesus.
In space, baby.
Space. No. Instead, I made my crew watch the first 4 Witchcraft films. Now, you may be wondering, what the fuck is the Witchcraft series? Now, anyone that grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, and went to the video stores and were fiends on low-budget Skinamax, Red Shoe Diaries, or real low-rent garbage, you saw the Witchcraft series on tape at every single last video store that you went to. The covers had a big pentagram and then some scantily clad chick and some muscle-bound dude looked like Harlequin romance novels for horror nerds. And when I was growing up, I always saw those things, and I never had maybe this is probably not the right way to put this. I never had the balls to pick one up. I just never was all that interested in them. They just looked really cheap, and it always seemed like they were spawning like gremlins, like somebody had sprayed water on them, and there was another 5 movies that came out in the last 2 months. Ultimately, it ended up being 13 movies that came out in this series. And a friend of mine a while back gave me all 13 of these movies. So they've been sitting around taunting me. And when it came to what am I going to do for some new episodes of Astro Radio Z, they spoke to me and said, you need to watch us. So I talked to all my crew, my boys. I got Brian Kirst, big gay horror fan. I got Glenn Buettner, Mark the Movie Man, and Scott Davis here. I'm making them, maybe against their will, and they probably won't ever come on my show ever again after this series of episodes. We're going to watch and do a retrospective on all 13 Witchcraft films. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope you stick around and put up with what I'm assured. I don't know. I can't expect anything out of the people that I bring on here. But it's going to be interesting going through what accounts to be basically a TNA series with light horror elements to it. So let's go around and say hello to everybody tonight and stop me babbling on and on and on and on. So, Brian, how you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing all right. How about you guys? Well,
We're all doing here.
Yeah, I think everyone's they're like just trying to like pull themselves together to even be able to speak about these movies we're going to talk about tonight.
This is going to be like crazy cathartic.
Julie Strain was actually going to fly in and hang out with me during this segment, but
She was,
but she couldn't make it, so she sent some silicone from her left breast. And I'm like rubbing that right now as we talk. She's a part of this, actually.
She's there in spirit.
Yeah.
That must have come freight, right?
So she still has O's, right?
Media mail.
Hey, if it fits, it ships.
Mr. Glenn Buettner, it's nice to see you. I almost thought I wasn't going to have you on the show tonight, my friend. How you doing?
Fuck you. I watched your movies. Now where's my wife?
See, that's what I didn't realize that's what this was. I didn't know there was... Can it be a drawing of a wife?
Paper doll?
Yeah, can I draw a wife for you?
Sure.
I just get these images of Mel Gibson from Ransom going, "Give me back my son!"
Not without my daughter. Mark the Movie Man, what's new in your world, my sir?
Oh, what isn't new? Oh, I'm still recovering from these films. You know, and I like zombie ass, so you know if this film doesn't entertain me, there's something wrong with it. Okay.
We gave you a complex, didn't we, about zombie ass?
You know what's funny is I did another review with another guy about zombie ass, so I had to defend it again. So.
Oh my God! You just can't get away from this fucking movie. For the listeners of Astro Radio Z that aren't familiar with the conversation we're having, we run another podcast called Film Jerks, and the last episode was on zombie ass, in which all of the members that are currently in this episode basically railroaded Mark and and stomped all over him because he likes poopy humor.
I like the poopy humor. Leave me alone. I turn 16 next month, so leave me alone.
Good for you. I hope the pubes are coming in nicely. Scott Davis, how are you doing, sir?
Just peachy, you know?
My God. You guys are some miserable bastards.
Yeah. It's freshly unemployed. Got to say, like, well, I gotta occupy myself with some kind of project. Oh, we're watching movies? Great! What are we watching? It was this. So.
You guys are just letting... You know what? Nobody's going to listen to the rest of my podcast. If you guys are doing nothing but already... Let's just set them up for failure. Oh, these guys can't stand this? Oh, I better listen to the next 2.5 hours of this shit.
But that's what makes it better, you know?
Right.
Our pain is entertaining to other people. I'm guessing.
Our pain is their gain, right?
Yes.
Well, all right. Well, let's cut the horseplay and the bullshit, and let's just get right into this. We'll start with the first Witchcraft film, which was made in 1988. Now, let's get this thing straight. None of these films, and we're going to talk about 1 through 4 tonight, none of these films went to the theater. All of them were straight-to-video exploitation films. First one, filmed in 1988, which I will personally subtitle as Rosemary's Generic Exploitation Baby. Its plot is as follows. A new mother and her child move into her mother-in-law's dark old mansion. Soon, she begins to suspect that neither the house nor her mother-in-law are quite what they seem to be. Dun, dun, dun. That's from IMDb. It's basically this chick. She, her and her husband are expecting a baby. She gives birth to a 1-year-old. And then goes to this,
almost 2.
Yeah, I have a 1.5-year-old, so right now it felt like looking at the baby. I watched it again like 2 nights ago. It looked like a 1-year-old, but yeah, this baby that she has is fucking huge. There's no way that she had this baby without her nether regions being torn to absolute shreds. Or a C-section. She gets out of the hospital after having this immensely huge baby, and she is walking around gingerly, walking up and down steps, trying to seduce her husband, trying to get him to sleep with her almost immediately. I don't know about you guys. I know Mark can speak to this, but after we had our first child, my wife didn't even want to look at me for a year.
I believe during the birth of my first child, she looked at me and said, "You are never touching me again." You would think even with it being a low budget, they could have gotten away with wrapping up something very, very small, and just
even a doll.
You never even see the face as a doll, because with this baby, you wouldn't see it or pay attention to it if it didn't take up half the screen for some of the shots. I mean, really, this was not a newborn, which right there throws off any type of getting into this, that this was a really young baby.
So, wait. Well, there was a baby in this? I thought that was just like the husband's stunt double that just kept getting left in
They didn't have as much hair.
It's just like
a lot of hair.
Foreshadowing, because like the next movie takes place a couple years later, and the kid's already 18. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll definitely suss that out once we get
he's
to
one of
number
those
2.
freak babies, like on the TV series V.
Oh yeah,
he's actually a lizard.
There's actually a lizard baby.
Let's go around. Let's give just general thoughts, because it's basically this lady walks home. She gets home. Her husband and her go to his mother's house, where she's there to recuperate, and the mother's going to take care of the baby while she recuperates. And as time goes along, weird, strange visions start happening, and she starts suspecting that there's something malevolent inside the house, and that they're plotting against her and her baby. That's essentially what this movie is. And then what ends up happening, we're going to spoil this, because I hate to break it to everyone. These movies are old, and you can find them, and I don't care if I'm going to spoil what happens in this film. But so essentially, everyone's witches, same way everyone is in Rosemary's Baby, and she's got to try and fight to survive. What was everyone's general opinion? Brian, what did you think about this movie?
I'm just surprised that this was successful enough to spawn 12 other movies. First off, I think anyone who's watched these has that immediate impression. I just couldn't believe, for something that has such a sexy video box cover, there was no nudity or anything in this.
Zero.
Nothing really sexy. Nothing. It just, they have a couple good moments. Like the last 5 minutes of this movie is probably the best part of the movie. And there are little things here and there that remind you of why you love horror films, and why you love TNA films, and why you love exploitation and genre films. But literally, the moments between those things happening are so stretched out.
Yeah.
So stretched out. It's just kind of crazy. And all the films have such weird tone shifts. Like, the thing that hit me right away was they're in the hospital, the nurses and the doctors are being very attentive, which struck me as weird. Does that, you really get that much personal attention in a hospital when you're
having a baby? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
Yeah, you do. They're very, very attentive. It's actually quite shocking.
Wow. Obviously I've never, had a baby or been involved with anyone who has had a baby. So I was just like, wow, do they really, like, there's a doctor and two nurses and an intern, and they're all like,
man.
Oh, that's interesting. See, I learned something. So they've got a very, kind of semi-serious tone, and then the best friend tries to sneak in the room.
That I wanted to talk about that. I'm glad
Three
you brought that
Stooges
up.
routine, like with the feet going up in the air weird, and the tone for like a minute totally changes, and then it goes into something else again.
Even the music.
These films are crazy.
And she's sneaking around, and they're having the typical kind of like Benny Hill cuts, where she's walking across the screen, cut. She's walking across the other way, cut. She's sneaking between things, 3/4 shot. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. That Linda character, her Grace, who's the lead. I titled her the 80s friend because this chick, she was the best character in the whole movie. To me. I thought she was really fun, and she wears these obnoxious red pants to the hospital, and then later on, when this priest character, he comes to the house to make sure christen the baby and make sure everything's okay. He gets killed in a very glorious fashion, and they come back from his funeral, and she's wearing like this leather short skirt and leather gloves with poofs on them to this fucking priest's funeral. Was she looking to get laid? I mean, what the fuck was up with that outfit?
She knew there were going to be a lot of stiffs there.
But she also had the best death in the entire film.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the entire series that we've seen so far, actually.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. She gets decapitated, and then Grace finds her head floating. That's it. That's it. Like a big blood splash. That's like the glorious thing in any of these movies, because most of the blood, like in this section, she keeps having this cheap Grace I'm referring to keeps having this flash. Like these flashbacks / hallucinations of the mother. She keeps turning around and opens her mouth like half-assed, and just blood just drips out of her mouth, and the worst freaking bleeding mouth effect I've ever seen in my entire life. It was like the cheapest thing. You couldn't have done it a little better than that. It was just like, it just dribbles out of her fucking mouth.
She did that like 4 times, too.
It's just the cheapest fucking shit.
She looked like she just drank some grape juice and then had a stroke.
I think they used that shot for stock footage in the next one too.
Yeah,
well, they use it.
We gotta use this again.
Yep. All of the pertinent information in this one gets regurgitated in each of the next 3 films.
Yeah.
So get used to that lynching scene that starts the film. Get used to that blood out of the mouth scene. Get used to the scene where they're grabbing guts out of a stuffed animal dog. So any of those seeds, get used to that shit, because you're gonna be seeing it over and over and over, and really poorly edited flash cuts. So Brian, please continue. What else do you think about this one?
It's just long stretches of wandering and not much going on. One thing that I thought was really interesting that I don't think that they followed up with too much is the conversation between Linda and Grace, where Grace talks about having track marks or living for the next
fix.
Yeah, she was like
fix. Yeah. And I thought that was this film and the films that follow it, they seem to have some kind of cool ideas and cool thoughts, and they don't really I don't think that was ever mentioned again. And obviously it leads into he wanted someone just to have this baby and is using her as a tool of some sorts. But unless I missed something, I don't think they ever expounded on that or followed up on that throughout the rest of the movie.
No, they didn't. And the thing is, there's moments like that for every single last character in this film. Now one of the biggest, I think, cheapest subplots, or it wasn't even a subplot, it was just like a flashback, was Grace's family, where all of a sudden she's outside and she has this green thumb. She's being ginger after she just had gave birth to this 3-year-old. She's outside, doing gardening and all this jazz, and all of a sudden she has this flashback of her parents who were brutally torn apart, and one's hanging and the other one is in bed just torn to shreds. And all of a sudden, it flashes back to the present, I should say.
Grace, you all right? Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine. Just bad memories.
And then walks away. So it's just like all these really cheap, like they felt like they needed to give some depth to each of these characters, but they didn't want to give the time because they wanted to get back to reminding you that they're just ripping off other movies. Glenn, let's move to you. What are your thoughts on this one overall?
All right, item 1.
Oh boy, here we go. Sit back, get your beer.
One of the most awkward dinner scenes ever on film. There's like that 7-minute long dinner scene where they're just kind of just eating, and then they threw in, I think, 1 or 2 clips of the blood in the mouth too.
Yeah.
We'll just throw that in there too. This movie is definitely a product of the 80s. You can tell that, and it's also a telling sign that guys will fuck anything because people were born in the 80s. And if you look at, women with half their body weight was their hair, and then wearing especially Grace wearing the freaking jackets that make women look like Dick Butkus with the shoulder pads.
Yeah, they were pretty bad.
Between that and then, oh God, just everything about it is just so awful.
Well, it's boring. I think that's the main thing.
It's incredibly boring, and yeah, the giant baby. Oh, and I love the fact that she goes to her mother-in-law's house to live there so she can recover from giving birth to the son of Godzilla. So she's too weak and too sick to go back to her real house. But mother-in-law constantly puts her to work. She's out working in the garden. She's working in I'm like, now
doing dishes,
do stuff, but you keep giving her chores. That's not what you do to someone who needs to recover from giving birth. Is, hey, you just gave birth. Go work in the garden.
Well, she's also trying to get it on with her husband too. It's just like,
yes,
I didn't believe any of that shit. And maybe the vast majority of viewers that this went for were like younger males and whatnot. This is a thing. This series could not be made today. Could not be made today because this came out at a time where they were marketed as acceptable porn. Essentially, like the Red Shoe Diaries and stuff like that. It was like the cover was sexy, and the guys could go in. They're horror movies. They could go in and get their TNA, bring them up to the counter, and then take them home, and then do what they will with them. But this film completely fooled them because there's none of that shit.
No.
And the
In
closest you
1988,
get,
there were hundreds of guys sitting around for 90 minutes with lotion in one hand and dry tissue in the other, going, "What the fuck do I do with this now?"
The closest you get is this chick who just had a baby, trying to slime on this husband character who's obviously getting that on with his older lady. It's just like, okay, we totally got fooled with this one. Just awful stuff.
And then to spoil the whole end, when dude comes to save her and the baby at the end, knocks the dude out, and then seems to forget that there's 2 bad guys. So I'll just go untie her so that the woman can stab me through the face with a poker or whatever it was. Like, really?
What about her husband who was wearing the worst dime store Bela Lugosi cape?
I
know. Just awful. So Mark, let's give your general thoughts on this.
I saw so much potential, and it never got there. It was one of those where you're sitting with lotion in one hand going, what the hell? But for me, just the horror events, it was like very few to none kills. I was trying, and just what it showed some hope. She's going down, and what it got me was the size of this house. It was like the fucking TARDIS. It was like huge, which threw me. I mean, she's in one part of the house, and then she just opens the door, goes down the stairs, and there's a whole nother house. I mean, like living room and dining room, and there's furniture everywhere, and I'm like, where is this? Because I saw this shot from the outside, and I watched it a second time, going, okay, did I miss the scale of the house? No, I didn't. This is like mystery rooms.
There's like at least 3 or 4 floors to this house, by what I counted last time I watched. Because there's the main floor, then there's a second floor which has a balcony that you can see down to the main floor. Then you walk upstairs to the bedrooms, and then there's the secret floor that's up above, where the secret room with the mirror that gave her visions to, the witches back in the day, and where Linda gets decapitated and all that jazz, and Ellsworth, the slickest mute butler, comes up and, thwarts their plans. And then, and this was something I wanted to talk to you boys about and get an answer to, where the fuck did that final scene take place? What was that? It was like a stage, and it was never established. It was like, is this in a different place? Are they in a different realm?
That was in a different part of the house, I think.
Yeah, by that time I think I gave up trying to where are they, it's just some other netherworld that they just pulled out of their ass at that point.
Oh, watching this movie made me think back to high school days when I played D&D, having to map out the dungeons, going, no. I need another shitty graph paper.
Oh my god!
No, I did enjoy where they the last few minutes of it. When they got into the part with the guy trying to save the family. I sort of enjoyed that part, but it took so long to get there that you didn't really care by that point. And like Brian said, I think that you could tell there's like little hints of ideas, but they never go anywhere. It's like, oh, okay, we're going to explore this. No, we're not. We're dropping this idea, and we're moving on.
No, this film was obviously shot in a week or less for a very minuscule budget. And when you shoot a film like that, the vast majority of that film is going to be someone walking around a house. Yeah. What is going to take the least amount of time and is going to fill up the most amount of space. And that's exactly what this film was almost the entire time. Now, I don't think this film was a complete piece of shit. Was it watchable? I thought so. I mean, compared to some of the other ones we're going to talk about, I think it was entirely. So yes. It was. I'll honestly say it was the best one.
I'll agree with you on that, but I know Scott probably has some words on it. But no, I'll agree with you on that one. That it was probably the best, the most thought out one, which isn't saying much out of the 4 that we're looking at tonight. It's probably the most thought out one, and the one they actually had most clue on.
Because they modeled it completely after another movie, so it was just basically get from point A to point B to point C, and that was it.
What got me too was the part where she found out, she's like, my house burned down.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so it's just like, oh, it happened a week ago.
She didn't know her house burned down. I'm like, how?
Hi. Hello. Terrible fire last night. What? Terrible fire last night. That can't be. It burned down last week. Maybe I'm crazy, but I saw that fire last night from the window across the street.
That became like the big crux of like the big mystery. Not that the house burnt down, there was no question, but when it burnt down.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit? I mean, obviously they burned down the fucking house.
Yeah, it's gone. We don't have to worry about that. So Scott, let's leave it up to you to wrap this up. What do you have to say about this?
Well, let's just say, I mean, the only reason I can think of that why they could conceivably make sequels to this movie was because that poster, that cover art was great. I mean,
it's a huge selling point.
Yes.
The pentagram, and then if you look at, this is the one where she's like leaning back and it looks all like sexy and stuff. That like is a total seller. In fact, I have some history with one of the later posters, which I'll talk about later on.
Oh boy!
Yeah, foreshadowing. Anyway, but this film did the unforgivable crime. It's not that it was ripping off, Rosemary's Baby, Omen, all these other kind of demon baby type things that were in like the mid '60s and throughout the '70s. It was that it did it so poorly. It was boring. I can forgive anything, but it was boring. It promised lots of like occult intrigue and possibly some like horror violence. didn't deliver. It promised me tits, didn't deliver. Big offense there. And it's just a terribly boring movie. It starred the woman who played Grace was actually I don't know if you checked this out on the IMDb. I did. You remember the actor Topol?
Yeah.
It's his daughter.
Oh,
No way.
Jeez.
Topol's daughter or granddaughter or something.
Wow.
I swear to God, yubby dibby 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 dum, that is his daughter.
Holy shit.
And she totally does not have her dad's talent, let me tell you.
None of them did. One of the funniest things I thought about her was every time they had her scream. Let's start off with the birthing scene. She looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger giving birth during that whole scene. The way that she yells, and then later, remember the scene when she finds Linda's head floating and she starts just flipping out?
Could reach her hand right down her fucking, throat. I mean, you saw like everything. It was crazy the way they shot that.
It was crazy the way she shot that and how far she went doing it.
Yeah.
Like, you think a director would have been like, okay, let's do that again, but don't look like somebody's giving you a thumb up the ass. How about you look like you're actually terrified by something?
No, I think by that point they were like, okay, this is the last scene of the night. Go. Okay, we're done. That's a wrap. Let's go.
Let it all out.
And the camera guy's like, shouldn't we shoot that? No, fuck it. We're on a schedule. Let's go.
Well, I think you nailed it.
Maybe they just told her she wasn't getting paid for the shoot. Sorry, Topol's daughter. We ran out of money.
The one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is that 1988 straight-to-video movies were still a relatively new commodity. Usually they at least did a small run in parts of the country, a few theaters. Even Corman was having the stuff still go to theaters at that point. But straight-to-video was rare. As like a result of that, we had all these horrible video effects. The fire cradle scene.
Okay, this was something I wanted to talk about because obviously this was shot on film. There's no doubt that this was shot on film and then posted on tape because all of the transitions are horrible digital tape-to-tape transitions. All of the superimpositions are really bad toasted effects. It's just like it was so blatantly obvious that this movie was done for as cheaply as humanly possible. Like I said, probably shot in like a week, then posted in like 2 weeks. It just like this thing just reeked of like the Corman school of let's shoot this as fast as possible and crank this out because there's a need to fill shelves with product. And putting a sexy cover out there on a tape shelf at a mom and pop store at that time was going to sell like hotcakes. They were just going to take this thing and it was going to go. And I'm sure this movie was probably made, and I'm going to probably transition into the second one now. But because the first one, I don't have the numbers, I couldn't find them. But the second movie, and this will give you an estimate of business that this movie did. I'm sure Witchcraft 1 did crazy business just because of the time frame it was made in 1988. And at that time, mom and pop video stores, when stuff like this got onto those shelves, people were clamoring for it. And something like this that was mildly sexy appealed to that demographic of guys that were going and renting all of these, TNA slashers / sexy thrillers, sexy horror comedies like Fred Olen Ray stuff and all of that. And the second film, its budget, Witchcraft 2, The Temptress, that was made 2 years later in 1990, had a budget of $80,000, and you can rest assured that the vast majority of that was for film and processing, and made back $1 million.
Get out!
No
so
way.
you know why this series it is a product of its time. Now what the explanation is to why once it hit like the 2000s why it kept going, I'd love to hear an explanation, and maybe once we reach that point I can find somebody that was involved that can kind of talk to that point. But the early stages, these first 4 films, this was just pure business. This was just like, these films were, the second one was made in 13 days, budget of $80,000, made $1 million back. That is license to print money. Complete license to print money. So regardless of the quality of number 1, which I felt was probably the best of the 4 that we watched, as soon as they saw the numbers come back, which I'm sure all they had to do was put a product with a nice cover on the shelf, that it was going to make its money back and then some. Once they saw that, like, okay, we got to crank one out. And every single one of these subsequent sequels were made 1 year later by somebody new. So you know that they were young directors looking to get their foot in the business. So they didn't probably pay them jack or shit, and they just made bank on these motherfuckers. So any last words on Witchcraft 1, or do you guys want to go on to Witchcraft 2?
Just going to be like the voice of dissent here, because a couple of you guys have said that it's you thought it was probably the best of these first 4. I actually thought it was the worst.
Really?
Wow, that's interesting.
Because this thing bored me so much, and nothing.
Okay.
It offered nothing.
Sure. I think I have to lean closer to you, actually, as well. I have to agree with you that it wasn't my favorite, and probably borderline on my least favorite, just because.
See, though, the whole thing about saying which one's better than which, this comes down to, that wasn't the most uncomfortable shit I've ever had.
I was wondering when you were going to show up. I had hoped this day would never come.
You were only a caretaker.
I was much more than that.
He must fulfill his destiny. He's no longer yours.
White magic could stop me. You're too late. He's in love with the pure spirit now. He'll have nothing to do with you.
Men, boys, they have desires. They can't control themselves.
He'll fight you.
3 boxes, 3 nights. On the 3rd night, William shall ascend the throne, whether he's willing or not.
So let's move on to the second crap of the night, which is Witchcraft 2: The Temptress, made in 1990. Now, this film, which took the boring, kind of straightforward kind of supernatural thriller that was Witchcraft 1 and decided, let's go straight exploitation with this. We're going to we had a cover, it's called The Temptress, so they have a blonde, bombshell with her tits kind of almost hanging out on the cover, creeping toward the viewer, and they went there, kind of. Now, what this movie was about is, here's the synopsis. The witches are back to make William, who was the baby in first one. Now, which, if you were to look at the 2 films, they look like they were shot months apart. Now he's like 18 or 20 or 25. It's never really explained. Is he in high school? Is he in college? Who the fuck knows? All we know is that now he's living with parents, which obviously aren't his, adopted parents, and he has this next door neighbor who's this hot blondie with a huge rack and just wears scantily clad clothing all the time and is over trying to just, she's basically a cougar trying to get in his pants, but she is actually the witch mother. She has possessed this neighbor and is trying to stir awake the warlock powers in order for him to become the Grand Master of Evil.
Yeah.
So trying to awaken the demon powers within him so he'll be the leader of the evil witches on Earth and bring about destruction in the apocalypse. But his white witch parents, who are Jay Richardson, I love Jay Richardson, and obviously he was in our documentary Screaming in High Heels, total staple of late 80s, early 90s titty comedy horrors. Total fun guy. I love that he was in this, but he got nothing to do. He was barely in it. But his parents and his nicely titted girlfriend and her bumbling idiot priest dad are trying to help him fight against the blonde evil seductress. So, The Temptress 2, Scott, what were your thoughts about this one?
Actually, I thought this might have been my favorite of the four. It's not great. Don't take that to it. But I actually didn't hate it, which was the weird thing. I didn't hate this. It was
kind of fun.
Yeah, because they actually seem to take the lesson that, okay, what sold the first one was the cover. We better actually do some of that stuff now. And they were still a little bit squeamish about the sex and about the violence and stuff like that. But they did have it in there.
But let me stop you there for just a second. One of the main problems I have with it, yes, they bring it, but it's a major TNA fail because there are only 2 sightings of tits. The first one happens at 28 minutes, and the second one happens at 1 hour and 28 minutes.
Yeah.
That is blue ball material. That is bullshit. So, yeah, they brought it, but they might as well have not.
You do also have the bra and panties sexual assault, though.
Yes.
The ghostly sexual assault, which, come on, high point of the movie? High point?
Yes. Yeah. There's also a rubbing masturbation scene where the lead seductress is at home rubbing herself to bad, like, Roundy's Van Halen.
But, yeah, I mean, I actually liked that it tried to bring some exploitation elements to the story, and I kind of like that. It wasn't a great movie, but like you guys were saying, there are some good ideas here, and they weren't fully realized. There were a couple surprises, like for instance, there's I guess this is going to be a spoilery podcast.
No, go right ahead. We can spoil the hell out of this. I don't really care. People want to watch them, they can go ahead and watch them, but I think it's a lot more fun if we do actually sit and talk through these.
I thought the nerdy girl character was going to be like a major player for most of the movie.
The most pointless character in the entire series. What was her point? Did she?
Well, that was the thing, is that they had this whole big thing like, oh, and I'll do this for you, and I'll get all this information for you, and okay, but you have to tell your friend Boomer.
What's it worth to you? I'll make you a deal. I'll translate this for you if you can get Boomer to take me to the medieval Italian tomb sculpture exhibit at the museum.
Yeah, no problem. Boomer will love it.
Great. I'll get on this right away, and I'll call you to the house later.
Oh, I'll be at Michelle's.
Okay.
Later.
His bumbling Ozzy Osbourne loving friend who is there just as typical 80s comic relief, who is a complete idiot. She does this favor and does all this backstory on this amulet for William. She's basically just exposition. That's all she's there for. Do you think this bumbling idiot is going to take this chick to a fucking museum?
No. But then it doesn't matter because you think that, okay, well, she's going to at least like make it through like an hour of this movie or something like that. No, she's like whipped out of a window like 20 minutes into the film.
Let's clarify this. Her male stunt double is thrown through the window.
Oh shit!
Wait, that wasn't her?
It was sort of like the scene where Elizabeth Catane gets thrown through the window in was like Friday the 13th Part 7.
It's a dude with a wig.
Where you see like, and she like just totally hits and I think she like drops and like lands at the main character and Boomer's feet.
Yes, like great aim.
So, it had elements like that where I could kind of like be surprised by it and chuckle at it. And so I appreciated that. There were other parts I really didn't like. For instance, the temptress of the thing.
Oh, come on now. She was the best part of the whole fucking movie.
Oh, I didn't like... she was unintentionally funny. Delia Shepard. She was unintentionally funny. But, that whole thing where they have, like, 2 3-inch nails that look like claws and stuff like that, and it looks like they had, like... It looks like you'd have to like take like a putty knife to like scrape all the makeup off. That's like not. That's just totally. That's like I guess it's like a thing. It just doesn't get my motor running.
I gotta know, Brian. What did you think of the Temptress? What did you think of her character?
Dude, I loved her.
I knew this. So that's why I wanted to talk to you about this. I knew, and the thing is, I knew I would feel the same way as you did because it's just high camp. She is
totally. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude. Oh, I'm not saying she's not campy. I mean, she was unintentionally funny, and so I like it. But she wasn't like sexy or anything like that.
Oh, are you kidding me? She had some great knockers.
Yeah, no. She was sexy in a very kind of exploded Marilyn Monroe with a bad accent way.
Right. Well, and the funny thing is, every time she did her quote air quotes powers was like her rolling her head or doing the finger powers.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it was totally like it made me laugh every single time. And she's trying to seduce him by licking him. And
dude, her tongue. What the fuck was she doing? Like that was like a super weapon. Like the way she would like.
She was not
around
very
the outside of her mouth.
That was not subtle, no.
Dude,
Who goes a ladder in heels? I mean,
she went to school for that.
Oh yeah, she was classically trained in
was
tongue
like
darting.
Gymnastics shit in Sweden. She was at some like high Alp, thing, snowy
high
Alp
tongue
with sensei prostitute mama learning that shit.
Those sexy girls who can tie the chairs in a knot. She could tie the chairs in a knot and give you a castration.
That chick was something else. Yeah. Well, let's also talk about the amazing ass ladder scene where she's cleaning out her gutters for some unknown reason.
Oh yeah.
And William has to come over and hold her ass while she does it. Do you think this maneuver was OSHA approved? You think this is the OSHA approved way of spotting a woman on a ladder?
Oh my god, she was like presenting to him, like something on National Geographic. It's like, oh, you gotta be steady, like, yeah.
Can I help you?
I'm sorry, I thought you were falling.
Is that right? Well, now that you mention it, I feel a little unstable up here. Do you think you could steady me until I'm finished? A little higher. Much better.
Oh.
I mean, there are certain. I think my favorite special effect of hers, though, was when she put Jay Richardson in a trance by throwing glitter on him.
Yes.
That was
that was awesome.
Dolores. Well, he's feeling a lot better, Dolores. William? Will? Come down for a second, will you, son? Oh, hi.
Is everything okay? Anything I can do?
It's just gonna take some time. Wonder where his mother is.
I just saw her at the church.
Well, I'll go get her.
I'll keep William company until you come back.
Thank you.
Seriously, yeah, I said the first one was the best, and I'm talking in a traditional film sense, but if we're talking pure camp and hilarity, part 2 was the best of these 4 films. Because it wasn't the best in matters of, like, in terms of plot, because it basically, it had no idea what the fuck it was at any point, but just, like, the elements, the campy elements of it were super ridiculous. But the unfortunate part, I thought, was that there was, in between these parts, it just so abysmally boring and so stupid. They were like the nerd character and Boomer were totally pointless. They could have cut them out and you wouldn't have missed them at all. And you know what? The funniest thing, right off the bat, this movie totally shits the bed. And the way it totally shits the bed is it gives you a title screen that isn't even fucking matted right.
Yeah.
You can see the fucking the orange on the sides where the Witchcraft logo it shines through orange and there's a black mat over top of it. It's improperly matted. It's like they didn't even give a fuck.
No.
They couldn't have just bumped it up 10% and like covered those. It's just fucking awful. Just horribly fucking awful. And then William and his girlfriend have like pentagrams written on, when they got possessed, and it looks like they were written in jelly on their chest. And then there's awful special effects like the priest who runs into the digital firewall. Oh my God, just so much.
I want to just talk just a couple things about this before we move on to the other people, because I got to talk about Charles Solomon Jr., who is going to show up in the next two as well. He's first of all, he's playing. A couple years have passed, but he's now like 18. He looks 30. I can't.
Is
find
that what he's supposed to be? Is he supposed to be in high school?
Yeah,
he's about to leave for college.
Right? Yeah, he's leaving for college.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So he's definitely 18 at least, and I've been to his website. I've been to Facebook, everything, trying to find an age for this guy. It's not on the IMDb. Can't find it, but looks like he's like around 30. He's still working, God bless him. He's still working.
Yeah, he's horrible in these, but he kind of has an okay career, right?
He's terrible. He's doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes now too.
Oh, okay. But I thought he kind of went on to do a handful of things, which I was surprised about because he's so bad.
He is the most wooden of actors.
He's very wooden until he has to show angst, and then it is the most over. We were talking about the Topol chick, the most overwrought angst, like when he just like has this like scream when he realizes his destiny and stuff. It just set me like in hysterics. I rewound it like 3 times.
Dude, there was a line where he was having that conversation at the dinner table with Jay Richardson, and there was something that was said. Jay Richardson said something, and then all of a sudden he looks over at him and goes, "I'm a man now, Dad." And it was just like, oh my fucking God. Oh my fucking God. Who wrote this shit? Mark, what do you think?
It was the most campy. It felt like they, with the first one, they were ripping off Rosemary's Baby. This one, they were trying to rip off the teenage slasher. In this
was it Fright Night a little bit too? Like
a little bit,
yeah. I think so.
There was a big Fright Night vibe coming from this, and it did have more campy moments than the first one, but it was tough to get through. Again, yeah, it was because of Junior there. The kid just such a wooden actor. He didn't buy into anything, and he's got this really attractive girlfriend.
Yeah, she's hot.
Very cute.
And he's acting like I mean, the guys in Birdemic acted better than this guy. Okay, they were blatantly trying to be bad. And this one, someone was with the cue cards off camera showing them to him, saying, "Here, read this line," and I just didn't. And then, like you said, they had every teenager cliche in here. It really was them, I feel, trying to go for that Fright Night teenage slasher vibe. Now that they had gotten the Rosemary Baby ripoff done, now they were trying to do, a similar film to the teenager killer paranormal film, with like Fright Night and that, and still doing it horribly, still not getting it right. And the one girl, I really liked the bookworm girl. Unfortunately, she didn't last long, and after that, she was the most interesting character. I'm like, okay, I see where they're going with this, and then she's like dead, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it took me by surprise. I was a little disappointed, but it did take me by surprise. So
most pointless character in the whole fucking movie.
She's the most interesting, though.
In what way? All she did was provide exposition. She goes to the library to for some reason, thinking under some false guise that Boomer, this complete fucking moron's going to take her to a museum if she like digs up all this arcane like knowledge on this stupid box or whatever the fuck it is, and then
Smart girls are hot.
Male stunt double gets thrown out the window. So what's the fucking point?
I know she had no point, but that doesn't make her not that less interesting. At least she was doing something.
Okay, Mark, I want you to be honest with me. You just like chicks with glasses.
Yes, you're right. Yeah,
there you go. You can be honest. It's all right.
I'll say it. It was the chicks with glasses thing. But I mean, at least she had some personality. She had some personality, at least. Not, maybe stupidity, but she at least had something compared to the majority of the other actors here, who I felt were reading the lines off their eyelids. Yeah, you know.
I mean, come on now, Delia had two personalities.
I agree.
Or four, depending on what angle you're looking at her.
But I mean, it was the campy. It was the teenage slasher of the series. The teenage trying to be with all the cliche characters in it, and for the most part, the camp part was more enjoyable in that respect than the first one. The first one just seemed, at least out of the two, the most thought out, which isn't saying much, but
no, it really isn't.
But at least the first one did seem to have things a little more thought out than this one. This one really felt rushed. After, they must have said, oh, we made money on the first one, we better get the second one out, crank it.
This was, it's obviously it was shot in 14 days, so this thing was just cranked out. Glenn, what were your thoughts on this one?
Well, okay, yes, it was campy. I don't think this was a campy version of a teen slasher or anything. I mean, obviously what you're missing is this is obviously a well-thought-out homage to The Graduate with the whole older woman and the,
Yeah.
Wow, you're digging.
Wow. Yes, it was campy. The one thing I did like about Charlie Solomon is some of the facial expressions. His acting's terrible, but he's got some great facial expressions when he reacts to some stuff. Those little bits I laughed at. The rest of the movie, I mean, I might be getting this wrong because I watched all four of these in one night. So
holy fuck! You fucking hate yourself.
Oh, I do. And there's the scene where he's got the pentagram on his body. That actually looks like
the jellygram.
Yeah, the jellygram.
Yeah, the jellygram.
Yeah, it's like we needed something on. Does anybody have a marker? There we go. Done. And I did appreciate the. How are we going to end this movie? I don't know. Let's make it like a rock video. Because that's kind of how I feel at the end of the movie was. It's like they just said, I'm out of ideas. Let's just copy, a Quiet Riot video from the 80s.
Shine a bright light through the door and have them ride around. And then, okay, it's great you brought this up because I wanted to ask you guys, what the fuck was the actual ending? Like that ending where they're doing the crossfades where they're in opposite ends of the room and they're constantly changing. What the fuck was that?
Oh, that's obviously they were trying to do some kind of French art house crap. That's the first thing I thought. I'm like, did I suddenly start watching a different movie? I was expecting them, just to say things like, the plum or something, just to become all artsy on me, and I'm not doing what the fuck? Yeah, that whole end scene became like French art house for like 2 minutes.
I would have loved this movie had they ended the whole movie with it just say the plum.
The plum. Witchcraft 2, the plum.
That's said in French, so whatever the French word for plum is.
I have no fucking idea. Brian, come on, I've been waiting to hear what you have to say about this movie all week.
Dude, you know what? I would watch anything in the 80s and the 90s, not for the director, not for the video box cover so much, but if it was for the actresses in them, for the screen queens and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
And Delia Shepard was in a ton of those bad TNA, films around this time, and she made the movie for me, and it was cool to see Jay Richardson. Granted, as has been said constantly throughout this conversation, there are a couple good things. I did love the whole nerdy girl fly out of the window thing. Delia Shepard really made this for me. She's not a talented woman, particularly, but she's got an amazing, presence. Yeah, there. But she's got some charisma and presence, and she's your Playboy model next door, So she made it for me. Otherwise, it was just kind of my favorite thing about all these movies. Once Will Spanner becomes older, is like he always talks about his powers. Like here he's found his powers, and the next one he's gotta keep his powers hidden, and then the fourth one he's got them under control. But the thing is, he doesn't have any powers. All they do is beat the shit out of each other.
Yep. He has zero fucking powers.
There's no powers. It's just a fight scene. And my powers finally released themselves.
Yeah, his chest glows
able
for
to
a second.
understand the meaning of it's all they're just like poorly choreographed fight scenes. It's crazy.
And they get worse. Each of these films. It's like, I think Mark brought up a really good point about this, and I think each of these films, the producers, what was popular at that time, let's ape that film, and we'll just toss in this one character in this story. First film was Rosemary's Baby. This film was Fright Night. The next film was like, okay, I don't want to get too far ahead, but the next film, it was like an episode of Matlock. It was just like,
That's perfect.
Each of these fucking films were just aping something, and I gotta agree though that the Temptress, it was probably the most fun of the four of these films that we watched, and that Temptress actress, she was just like chewed up scenery every time she was on screen. It was just
comic book villainous come to life.
I mean, absolutely.
She at least was trying to play a character, as most people seem to be going through the paces. Just like with the nerdy girl, was actually someone who was, they wrote her to be actually doing something.
Yeah, I like the nerdy girl. I like her. You guys. I like the nerdy girl,
and I like the Temptress in the fact that she was at least trying to be something rather than someone reading lines, So.
Yeah, you mean she actually knew her lines?
Yeah, she actually knew her lines and was trying to, be a character rather than someone just getting their paycheck.
Oh, man. Speaking about paychecks, let's move on to fucking Witchcraft 3, The Kiss of Death.
I studied law for one very long semester. Just couldn't take it seriously. All that and justice for all. Come on, who are we kidding, William?
It has its merits.
I think he means its rewards.
You don't look like you're hurting too badly.
Baseball has been very good to me.
Baseball? I thought you said you were in real estate.
It's a joke, Philly boy. I sell real estate and I bet on baseball.
I've never been to a baseball game.
Really?
Yeah.
Neither of the teams I've been betting on. Can we get another round, please?
No, sorry, I've got to get going.
Oh, no way, Billy boy.
Well, at least let me pay half.
My treat. I got to keep the lady company.
No, I better be going too.
Well, okay. How about I walk you home? For safety's sake.
Okay. Sure. Why not? I'm over 21.
I will subtitle this film Matlock Warlock Lawyer. This film, I gotta be 100% honest, was an absolute fucking chore to watch. The synopsis for this film is: a demon is sucking the life out of local women by kissing them and parasitically putting it into his girlfriend. William, Warlock Lawyer, must stop him if he can find the time between taking bullshit cases and his needy, child-wanting girlfriend.
Wow, I didn't know IMDb wrote stuff up like that.
No, that's the Derrick Carey Astro Radio Z synopsis of Witchcraft 3: Kiss of Death. This film is just like, it had no idea what the fuck it wanted to be. I think at this point he becomes this lawyer character. You know, we zoom past in the future, which I'm guessing is 10 more years, to where he's an established lawyer, or he's like this. Is he supposed to be a public defender?
I think.
I think so.
Is it the woman who was so bitchy to him? Wasn't she the public defender?
Yeah. No. Yeah, she was the public defender, and he's just like the lowly, like he was just
defense
starting
attorney.
out.
He was
defense attorney.
Yeah. She's like the prosecuting attorney. I took him as like somebody who is like probably taking all these, like trying to like, you know, right these wrongs and like really take these, you know, be the guy who like takes the wrongfully accused and stuff like that, like a Matlock type.
Yeah, totally. And that whole subplot, this is the thing, that this movie had like 4 different subplots. None of them made any sense, and none of them even mattered. All they had to do was establish that he was a lawyer, and that during the day he went and did lawyerly stuff. And then the main plot should have just been him trying to, you know, fight this demon guy that's sucking the life out of these women around town at bars, and then he sucked the life force out and then put him into his girlfriend in some weird relationship where she depended on him for life. What were the good parts of this? I'm just going to break this down for you guys. This is what I thought. The good parts of this movie were all of the women were good looking. Every single last one of them were really good looking. But probably the biggest plus in this film, at 6 minutes and 30 seconds, we learn that Scott Davis is a badass associate producer. Do you have anything to say about this, Scott Davis?
Well, it was the early 90s, everything was looking rosy. So I was all about like trying to get into the film business, and there I was, I was like 16 years old, and they said, "Yep, bring it on."
So I gotta be honest, Scott. How many bricks did you shit when you saw that?
I laughed really hard because it's a common name. It's a common name. I got a really common name, but it's still funny to see it in like associate producer Scott Davis, especially since like later on, like about maybe just under 10 years after that, in like TV news, I actually was working as an associate producer. So I was like, so I see associate producer Scott Davis. Oh, and I also played the waiter in this movie.
Yes, that is correct.
That was kind of funny. I was like,
I thought that was really humorous. And the only other thing that I thought was good in this film was the final line that's spoken in this film by William after he defeats the demon is,
"My name's not Billy Boy."
And then he walks away. And that's the end of it. Fiend. End of the fucking movie. It was just the most ridiculous thing. What was bad about this movie? Every fucking last thing else that was going on in this film. This film was a typical 90s Skinamax film, super generic. One of the weirdest things I thought that started right off the bat was this demon character. They set the first scene. They set this guy. He's at a club and he's talking to this nice-looking girl, and he leads her out into like the back of the bar into this alleyway. And this chick is totally ready to fuck him on a pile of garbage.
Yeah, like, I know.
What the hell was wrong with her?
Yeah, aim high, girl.
Yeah, absolutely. So we start off weird like that. William, his character now, is just like, at this point, I think they would have been better off just making this a syndicated TV series. Because it's essentially set up in the same way like a Matlock was. Like I said before, his job subplot is the most pointless thing ever, where he's defending this African-American kid who's been accused of murdering his neighbor. And the only reason they even introduce this plot is because his priest, which is like a voodoo priest, is the guy who ends up convincing William that he's got to, harness his powers and use them, in which we all know he has zero fucking powers to do a single fucking thing. William in this movie is a complete total fucking baby. He won't commit to his pushy girlfriend who wants a baby. She's just like got baby fever up the fucking wazoo. But the funny thing is, he doesn't want to commit to her. He's confused, but he gets pissed when she wants to rub up on the demon dude because William doesn't want to fuck her.
Yeah.
So it's just like, dude, what the fuck's wrong with you? Then he learns that his power comes from the goodness of his heart, and it just, oh my god. The biggest offense, other than, the last battle, which basically takes place in a laundry closet, was that this film obviously was called Kiss of Death. There are no tits until the hour mark of this film. Again, it's sold as a TNA film, and there's nothing until an hour in. Oh, this movie is just a big bowl of boring fail. There's just nothing going on in this movie. Brian, what did you think about this thing?
Just the thing that overwhelmed me the most was just like the sheer laziness. I mean, any of these films have had little plot points that could have been turned into something, and they just put the bare minimum out there. The thing that I don't know why this frustrated me so bad was they spent so much time on him trying to help the kid. So much time was spent on that plot point. And if I'm not mistaken, unless I missed something, it was resolved off screen. Like you said, the whole point was to kind of get the voodoo grandpa, which could have been done, number of ways. But yeah, I was just like, you spent all this time developing the story where he's helping this kid, and this kid is innocent. And it's just like you find out later that off camera, the husband has confessed to killing the wife, and the kid disappears. I'm like, that was the thing. I was like, what?
Yeah, totally pointless.
That is just totally pointless. That is poor filmmaking, poor plot making, just kind of lazy ass.
But he got his exercise because he went up the stairs to that court like 15 times throughout the film. I'm like, dude, move your office. He's like constantly going up the stairs to court.
And then we have that fucking typical fucking battle between the older lawyer, which was that female who was busting his balls, and him being the overtly earnest, wanting to help the public, the little man subplot, which was just like so torturous to sit through because they were just everything.
I liked it when she got hit. By the car.
By the car?
That was one of the most exciting part of the movie.
Call an ambulance!
She's dead right in front of the car.
What the hell were you doing? You should have seen her.
Well, we didn't. I'm sorry. Okay, let's not stand around here arguing all night. I'm cold. And I don't feel so well.
Billy boy, go on home. We'll take care of this. You can't afford to get yourself caught up in this mess. I can't just leave. She's badly injured. Don't be a jerk. This could ruin your whole career. I'm not really worried about my career right now.
William, you had nothing to do with this. There's no reason for you to stay here. So why don't you just leave, okay?
We'll take her to the hospital. Don't worry, we'll keep your name out of it.
It hasn't dawned on him at all that they drove up in his car.
Right.
I mean,
completely.
He doesn't question this.
Well, he's an idiot. Like, who would, any normal guy would go, no, we better call the police. Oh, no, we better put her in our car because we don't want your name, associated with this. And just, I'm like...
Yeah. William, don't worry. Please,
dog.
we'll take care of this in your car. Just go walk home, please.
You're not a very smart lawyer, dude.
The worst. The absolute worst.
Let's talk about our Christian voodoo priest who works out of a Catholic church.
At least he was leaving the altar boys alone, Mark.
You mean the guy who
altar boys alone?
Yeah, totally. You mean the guy who hangs out at random dudes' houses in the bushes at night to jump out just to give, just to tell them, you need to harness your powers. I'd be like, dude, you're like a fucking rapist in the dark. Get the fuck off of my property. Oh, my fucking God. Glenn, did you even make it through this film? Did you just want to, like, gouge your eyeballs out?
Man, well, I mean... You take out the flashbacks, you take out the lawyer stuff, and you have about a 9-minute movie that culminates in the worst fight scene ever put on film.
In the broom closet?
God, I need to go back and watch, because I swear it almost seems like they're like almost pausing in the middle of the fight, like to look back at the camera going, are we still filming? Are we still fighting? Because we're kind of rolling here, but I'm not into
laundry's falling on them,
going.
Clothes racks.
Yes, and that's one thing is, I know, now I've never been in that kind of fight. I was a bouncer, so I had my little bit of scuffles, but I've never thought that if I'm in a fight, I'm going to go, I could keep fighting that he was trying to kill me, or I could take the time to move this little piece of clothing that fell on my back. I'm going to push this out of the way because that's bugging me during my fight scene here. Fighting for my life, but this coat's in my way. So I'm going to move it.
How about once the fight is what about once the fight is resolved and he goes to check at his girlfriend, and the first thing he does is look at her rack. Like he goes over and he opens her shirt, and I know we're supposed to see that the little burn spot or like the sole, the minus sole is gone on her chest, but it just looks like he's looking at her tits, making sure that her tits are okay.
What'd you think of the girl too? She's tied down, she's about to be sacrificed, and she's laying there like, oh, they're fighting. Oh, I mean, she's like not struggling.
She's in shock. She's in shock, Mark.
She's in shock.
She's like, what did my agent do to me? He got me in this piece of shit movie.
They woke her up for a 6 a.m. camera call is what they did, and she just laid back down and said, I'll be here.
She had just a 24-hour shift at the 7-Eleven, and they, brought her onto set. She was practically catatonic, because they weren't paying her to be in this.
I have to say, what amazes me is how they still had money to keep. I mean, as you said, Derek, how they made $1 million in the second one. But I'm amazed they still had money because with the teasing they do of it's going to be a skin flick, and it almost never is, that they didn't get sued by Jergens and Kleenex at this point for damaging the sales. 14-year-old me would watch. I would have watched it and been like, pissed.
Oh, completely fucking pissed.
I spent half my friend's allowance on this because he's one of the only people in the movies.
Yeah. Well, they make a point to bring in, like, Roundy's Monique Gabrielle as, like, his girlfriend. And she just, like, that final scene is essentially just like all of the TNA is tossed into that final scene. But do we get to actually see anything more than a few fleeting glimpses of, the TNA? No, we just end up watching 5 minutes of these two guys tussle around in a fucking, like, in somebody's closet with clothes falling on them. It's the worst fucking ending. This whole movie was a complete waste of fucking time. Mark, you want to give your thoughts real quick?
I think everybody pretty well summed it up well. It was a mess. I mean, the girl in here, what got me was they tried to play this romance angle with his girlfriend, and it was like sitting there going, she's surprised that her boyfriend's upset because she's all up in the shower with Warlock Boy. She's like, she's she's like, why are their whole relationship was just so awful. I'm like, why is he even bother? Let her get sacrificed. And it's witchcraft. The title's Witchcraft.
And there's none. And
we're in the third episode of this long TV series. And there was a magic staff for like 3 seconds. There's your witchcraft.
From a voodoo priest.
Who, signs as a Catholic priest in his day job. He just... Yeah, I don't know. It was a mess.
What about the voodoo priest's wife who didn't seem concerned that her husband died at all?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he died, by the way. Here, you got to do this.
Here's this staff. He died, but please come here. I want to give you this weapon I'm not going to grieve. I'm going to give you this weapon so you can defeat this stupid demon that's just killing all of the stupid bar women in the entire city.
It just, it didn't even have good makeup effects when Zombie Girl that he was feeding these souls to wasn't getting some. It just, it was a mess. It was
my God.
Truly a mess.
Associate producer Scott Davis, please tell me your thoughts on your experiences with Witchcraft 3: Kiss of Death. And any behind-the-scenes hijinks, please.
Okay, let me tell you. Let's stop pretending that I was actually, on the crew of this film for a second. And
I don't want to associate myself at all with this.
No, but no, seriously, I actually do have history with this movie. There's 2 Witchcraft films that I do have previous history, and that's 3 and 4. I was at you remember the video store at a few weeks ago or whatever.
Yeah, Video Oasis.
Yeah, and I was actually back then, I was actually working on always going to this place called Video Merchant, and they'd always give me the posters that they didn't want to hang up in the store, and because I was always in there, and so they gave me this thing, and it was the poster to Witchcraft 3. And I'd never heard of Witchcraft 1 and 2. And I looked at this, I said, what is this? Because it's got the pentagram, it's got a Roman numeral, and it's got 2 people banging on the cover. I'm like, I'm 16 years old, so I'm like, hello. And I was like, oh, I can't do this. So, one of those sleepovers that I was telling you about where I'd always try to show the kids at the private schools that I had to go to, something really satanic and stuff, so that their parents could really fucking hate me even more. I said, we're gonna get Witchcraft 3, because it's got Satan and tits, 2 things that your dad told you to stay away from. And we got this, and I do remember I'd forgotten everything about this film except for the part where she walks in, or he walks in, or somebody walks in, and the doggy style thing. And the guy just looks up. This is like the demonic guy. He just looks up as he's without breaking rhythm or anything, he just says, welcome. And he just goes right to the dog. I mean, without breaking stride or anything. And I remember, as a teenager where, just, kind of entering that part of my life where I was happy if I could, give a gal the best 20 seconds of her life, at that point, I remember thinking, dude, how'd he do that?
you had to build that into your repertoire.
Yeah, I got to do that next time. I just got to, if I'm ever going to town and the doorbell rings, come in.
Oh my Jesus!
But anyway, this film really is bad because that was the only thing I remembered. Aside from the fact that we were disappointed, and I watched it again, and I realized, this is why we were disappointed, because there really isn't a whole lot of titillation. There really isn't a whole lot of action. The best stories in it were, with the most potential, were the court case, which has nothing to do with anything, and the guy sucking the life force out of the women. No, instead they have this thing where where the sucker guy and his girlfriend wind up being best friends with Will Spanner, which I didn't buy at all because they met in a bar and they kind of had basic conversation. Don't get a sense that they hit it off at all, but suddenly he's the best friend. He's popping down in his face saying, "Hey, Billy boy," and all that stuff. And
what about how he all of a sudden Will leaves his keys or his wallet? The typical, I want to meet you again. I'm going to leave my wallet at a fucking bar. Right, that happened. But so the demon sucker guy goes to his house. His William's girlfriend is a professional photographer, or no, she's she produces photo sessions, like a fashion consultant or something like that at her house.
Clothes, by the way.
And fashions were horrible, yeah.
Oh, it was the worst. I work with a photo studio. I know how photo sessions go. You don't just let any random Joe come in and start making design choices on what the people are wearing and stuff it was the worst dumbest photo shoot I've ever seen.
Well, it's terrible, and it also it speeds more years ahead because remember the last time he was about to leave for college. By now he's gone through college and law school, and now he's probably actually finally looks his age. But one thing I did find intriguing, and I wish it could have paid off better, is because now finally we're starting to hear a little bit more about women working in the horror genre behind the scenes, like with the Saskas and all these other people, who are actually starting to make some waves finally. I noticed that the director of this film was a woman. The producer was a woman. Music by a woman. I think possibly even written by a woman. And I thought, geez, that's really rare when you have that many women, because, the women aren't really treated so great.
I think some of that could be, too, is that at the time, Roger Corman was kind of doing the same thing. Now, if you have any back knowledge of the Slumber Party Massacre series, all of those films were directed by women.
He would do that with that, and he'd do that with that, and like the nurse films, and like the teacher. He would usually do that with the films often that he knew that he was going to get the biggest backlash from feminist groups, and say like, "Hey, but how can you say that? Look at what I did here." Because he would counter it by saying, "No, I had women in charge of these movies."
Right.
This, I don't think they really thought that through. I don't know what happened here, because I don't think they thought anything through on this movie. It really is terrible. It really is terrible. I wish it had paid off, because when I saw those names in the crowd, I was like, wow, that's interesting. And then like an hour and a half later, the movie's over. I'm like, wow, that wasn't interesting at all.
No, it was a total vacant void. It was just your most generic episode of like The Night Stalker or something like that you had ever seen.
Yeah,
and
I should have
then,
taken my name off the credits.
Yeah, you really should have. You should have at least done an Alan Smithy, for Christ's sake, on that thing.
Let's not forget we're entering into the age, the new decade of the 90s horror, which was really, different than your 80s horror. And
more generic.
I mean, just looking at the list of 9 horror movies that came out in 91, the same time as this one, dear Lord, what you had come out was, you had Trancers 2, Scanners 2, Puppet Master 2 and 3, Popcorn. I
love Popcorn, dude. I love that
Popcorn.
movie.
No,
I like all those movies that you just mentioned.
I actually do like all those
were
movies.
good, but I'm just saying, though, that there was a lot more of the direct-to-video horror, I think.
This was the point where video had reached its apex.
Zenith, yeah.
Yeah, and it was starting to go down. Like the early 90s, like 92, 93 was generally considered the downfall of video, where the big boom was starting to taper off. It still lingered on, don't get me wrong. Video lasted around to like 2000 and 2000, almost to 2003, but the big heyday of the mom and pop video store and the little exploitation filmmaker being able to go in and put together $50,000 or $100,000 and make millions back on that investment by just putting any piece of shit out there was starting to taper off.
Right.
So this film reeked of let's just have someone write a script in a weekend. We'll pull together whoever we have together, and we'll just put this movie out there.
Well, that was my point, was the fact that there were a lot of other better movies that were sequels at the time, but it was the waning years in the early 90s of the video boom and that and the good stuff, I think they pushed this one out just to make sure they were in that batch of films, because it really tapered off. I mean, Full Moon really lost a lot after the 90s.
Well, Full Moon was going pretty strong up until I think like 95, 96. I think the early 90s was their breadbasket with the Puppet Master movies, and you had the Subspecies, and you had like Castle Freak, and you had all this stuff. So they were going pretty strong up until the mid 90s, and that's really when VHS kind of died.
Yeah. They were big until they lost their Paramount license, and then it took them a long time to recover. Now I think they have recovered, but it took them a while.
I don't think they've recovered. I think they're just kind of holding on.
They're doing more with the streaming stuff and everything like that. Yeah. It's a different game altogether. I was actually listening to like a big Charlie Band podcast just earlier today, but that's
I think where they're making a ton of their money back is the $5 Walmart bins. They've made a ton of money because of those multi-packs that they put out.
Which I wouldn't pay $5 for Witchcraft 3 or 4. Maybe together. Maybe as a compilation disc, one of those where it was offered the first 8 Witchcraft for $5.
See,
maybe,
that would be the
you know.
perfect thing. I was thinking
Some
about
of
that
these-
today. Is why hasn't somebody put all 13 of these together on one of these packs and sold them?
Some of these, like some of the I think some of the later segments, like around part 10 and stuff. I think some of the segments did wind up on a couple multi-packs.
Yeah, the ones with Stephanie Beaton.
I have number
Detective
13 on
Lutz.
one of those. So let's kiss this piece of shit to death and goodbye, and let's move on to the last
Number
film.
4.
Let's move on to number 4, the last film of tonight that we'll do of the Witchcraft series, The Virgin Heart, that was made in 1992, and I will subtitle this film Poop Velvet.
From the creators of the original Best Renter, Witchcraft, comes Witchcraft 4, the shocking sequel destined to shatter rental records of your most popular horror series. Home Video Plus predicts Witchcraft 4 will be an excellent renter, and Granada Video says the Witchcraft audience is anxiously awaiting Witchcraft 4. Starring sizzling penthouse pet Julie Strain and Witchcraft 2 and 3 star Charles Solomon, Witchcraft 4 Virgin Heart will satisfy horror fans' thirst for demonic action and scintillating effects. Witchcraft 4 is now available in 2 heart-stopping pre-packs. Buy 3 copies of Witchcraft 4 and get 1 more copy free, or buy 1 copy each of Witchcraft 1, 2, 3, and 4 and save $60. And as a special bonus, for each pre-pack, Academy Entertainment will include a sensational 100% cotton Witchcraft 4 t-shirt. Witchcraft 4. It will cast a spell on your customers.
This film wanted to be Blue Velvet so badly in every last way that it was horrible. So what is The Virgin Heart Witchcraft 4? Synopsis is William, now a lawyer / wannabe PI, takes a case of a missing couple and winds up in deep with a big-titted stripper / lounge singer who's played marginally okay by Julie Strain. And Julie Strain is involved with an organ harvesting demon cult. So right off the bat, the only thing that was good about this is it was a lot sleazier than the rest of the films. But what was the worst part of this? This had the worst sound mix I've ever heard on a film ever. Ever. And I'm talking about, I've watched some low-rent, shot-on-video on your mom's camcorder in the backyard films, and they had better sound than this fucking piece of shit. And it goes to show you, because this was distributed by Troma for a very, very long time, goes to show you that they don't care. Just give them your film, and they're just going to put it out, and it doesn't matter, because all of the dialogue was pushed into the left speaker, and then the right speaker was all of the sound effects, all of the soundtrack, everything, and it was, I would say, at least a good 3 to 5 dB higher than any of the dialogue that was pushed into the left speaker. It was almost unintelligible. And when I just rewatched this last night, I could tell you a good 3/4 of the film, I didn't hear dialogue, and I didn't care, because it didn't fucking matter. It starts off in a way like we had talked about how tonally each of these movies shifted from movie to movie, because obviously they were being pushed off onto different directors, new directors that they could find for cheap, and they could just churn out anything. This film, which this is fucking downright shocking to me, was directed by the director of SLC Punk, which arguably is one of the best 90s films. SLC Punk, the director made this fucking atrociously boring pile of shit. I just obviously, just trying to get your foot in the door, but this thing is just, it wants to be Blue Velvet. It reeks of 90s, hard contrast lighting, where they just set up one fucking 1K off to the side and just shined it across everybody. It didn't bother putting any fill light, didn't put anything on it just horribly lit. Most of the edits are done with flash frames. This is done, the basic setup's done in this really lame film noir PI kind of like all of a sudden William now is like this
Now he's a
lawyer PI character where it's done in that lame kind of film noir where he's having internal dialogue while bad jazz is playing in the background. Then they have the first scene of this film, which it seems to be a reoccurring thing now, starting with 3. It's like they set up the film with a scene where something happens, and then we go into the film proper, and the first scene is this couple that goes to like a point to like do it, you know, like the makeout point, and the girl doesn't want to do him.
Yeah.
So he walks off and she walks off, and to try and find her, he climbs a tree and like tries to find her, and he slips and falls and knocks himself out. Just the dumbest thing. And then she, walking off in the middle of nowhere, goes to a phone booth, and somebody miraculously drives up, and she follows this guy to the back of his car to a trunk where he fucking pounds her in the head with a crowbar. It's like, these are the 2 dumbest fucking characters I've ever seen in my entire fucking life. And then we go into the main story where Julie Strain is this lounge singer / stripper who obviously is getting treated bad by a demon. Total fucking Blue Velvet. And it's just like, this movie is a mess. Glenn, is there anything redeemable about this movie at all in your mind?
I want to fart, but I'd probably shit myself, which would actually be a better experience than actually having watched this movie. It's like the guy, you know, he got this movie. He's like, all right, I'm directing this thing. It's called Witchcraft 4. But I really, as you said, Derek, he wants to do this film noir type thing, because there's so little witchcraft in this. This is more of a detective story, murder mystery, you know, made for TV, you know, type thing, and just
it's made for cable. This felt like the made for cable type of films.
Yeah,
they decided to throw on video just so that they could make an extra buck, since they can't make anything on the, you know, it being on cable late night.
Well, you know, it sums up the first 4 movies. You know, as Derek said, you know, these are old, you know, and don't watch them because they're old. And, you know, there are old things worth seeing, you know, like the pyramids, and maybe like, you know, some old castles. But there's old things you don't need to see, like this, or your grandparents having sex. There's old things you don't need to see. And, oh, man.
That's partially why I wanted to do these episodes, I think, because we're kind of taking a bullet for people, I think, with these films. And I know there are some people out there that will find enjoyment in these because they are campy. But this film, just from technical aspects alone, is nearly unwatchable. It's just like, that sound is the fucking worst.
I will say a positive about the film. Is Julie Strain is much less hideous as she has become.
I don't know, man. I gotta be honest, and I don't know if, Brian, you disagree with me, because Julie Strain in some films is really fun, but I have never been attracted to her in any way, shape, or form.
Well, neither have I. I just think, you know, it's in her progression to what she is now, she's not as awful to watch. I can watch her and go, all right, I could still think about having sex with someone else, as opposed to when I see her now and I'm like, I'm just going to go put my dick in the blender.
Brian, did you have any fun with this movie at all?
This was my favorite of the 4.
Oh, my dear God. I got to hear this. Okay, lay it out.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it. Yes.
It was horrible. Come on, it was horrible. It was horrible. There's no denying that. But, yeah, I just...
He liked Julie Strain.
I love Julie Strain. I do love Julie Strain.
She's a goddess among screen queens.
You know, and yeah, I kind of enjoyed them playing around with the noir stuff a bit. I loved the scene where, and this I thought was actually maybe even a little artful, was the first time he comes to the club and she is supposedly singing, or whoever is singing.
Right.
And hey, it's hilarious. He wanders back and she's in her dressing room, and he goes,
I'm sorry. Do you know where the bathroom is?
Please, come in. Sit down.
Listen,
I really need to ask you a few questions.
You know what the funny thing is, Brian, is that scene where it has that forced perspective of her in the right frame.
Yeah.
I thought that was the best scene of the movie because there was some actual witty dialogue between the two, and when she gets him kicked out, I'm like, that was actually well done.
And it's my favorite line in the movie because he's looking for the girl who's disappeared, and she goes, "Don't worry."
I used to disappear a lot too when I was 16.
Loved it! But it was just so horrible, though. She did one of the Claude Van Damme films, and this is the first time I'd ever heard of her. She was on one of those really cheesy television expose shows, and her big thing is she claimed that some guy broke into her apartment during the night and attacked her, and she was able to fight him off because her, in quotes, good friend Jean-Claude Van Damme had taught her some karate moves on the set of this picture they had done. I think it was Double Trouble.
Double Impact.
Double Impact.
Double Impact.
and they mentioned Julie Strain is an up-and-coming, actress in Hollywood. Her latest film is Witchcraft 4. So I went out and rented it and taped it, and but even then, and I don't know if it was a sound thing, but it was so bizarre. Everything she said was done in like this real exclamatory fashion, but with an emphasis on like wrong words in the sentence, though.
Yes, yes.
It was crazy. I don't know how she did it, because it'd be like, well, I don't know what you're doing here because I love you. It was nuts. It was almost brilliant.
Oh my God! I don't know if I'd say that.
But yeah, there was just like I loved the bartender, the half the mentally challenged bartender.
Yeah.
With the fair chest, high waisted leather suspenders. I mean, that was a character.
Right. Yeah, he was kind of like, he was the toady character of those guys. And there was even a part where it was so like far into the noir aspect, there was one of the henchmen of the demon, the overlord guy, and he what, you want me to axe him?
Yeah. I need to flip someone soon.
It was something like that, like, or what, you want me to take him out?
Yeah.
And it was just like,
Yeah.
fucking God.
Yeah.
Well, we got to prepare ourselves, folks, because the guy who wrote this one also directed 9 and 7 for Witchcraft episodes. This is the guy that brought us Oversexed Rug Suckers from Mars.
Yep.
Was the guy who wrote this. That was his first film, which he also directed, and he went on to direct Body Parts.
Oh wow! Body Parts, not a bad film.
The writer of this film did direct Body Parts.
Wait,
that's shocking with Jeff Vane.
I thought Body Parts was Eric Red.
According to IMDb,
is there a different Body Parts? Because I thought Body Parts was before this, maybe.
Michael Paul Gerard did a movie called Body Parts in '92, which would have been just after this.
Oh, you're talking about a different Body Parts than we're talking about.
No, it's not.
This is a trauma release you're talking about. The one we're talking about. Yeah, the one we're talking about was directed by Eric Red with Jeff Fay.
Yeah, that was the good one. This one wasn't the good one, but I mean, this guy who wrote this, this was like his second writing thing, and he didn't really improve later on. So,
but he did go on to write, I think, a movie that was called Different Strokes, but it was actually the Dana Plato softcore porn film.
He did do that one. Yes, he did. He directed and wrote that one. So that explains a lot with this one of the person who brought us this film. Oh yeah, it was a mess, and I like noir stuff. And the scene that got me with this was the whole scene in her apartment with the rape scene, I guess, or
the blue velvet scene.
The blue velvet scene, and for me, I'm sitting here going, here's Mr. Good Guy, Mr. Good Bar, Mr. Man of the People. And he doesn't do shit.
I know.
He's a warlock. He's got powers.
He doesn't. No, he doesn't.
We've already established, Mark, there's no powers. Right. All this was a rip-off scene of that famous scene in Blue Velvet. That's all this was.
But, I mean, I was so frustrated because I'm, sitting here going, You know, he's talked about, you know, I only use my powers for good, though he doesn't have any powers, but he believes he has powers, and I'm like, this would be a good time.
Yeah.
No, really.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just, you know, putting that out there. I know you don't want to use them often, but a girl's getting violated, and you're in the closet. And then you wonder when you come out why she's pissed at you. You know?
What about that weirdly, well, it's not weirdly, it's a typically a lit 90s scene with the two of them fucking in an elevator that's ascending, and then they share cigarettes.
Well, that was 9.5 Weeks meets Angel Heart, wasn't
it? Yes, it was. It was definitely. It was like.
Oh, please, Scott, don't ever compare this movie to Angel Heart ever fucking again. That was a good movie. This is a total fucking.
No, he's talking about.
Sorry, Brian.
Talking about the elevator scene.
So
he's talking about the elevator scene.
It might have aspired to it. It totally missed the fucking mark, though. Don't get me wrong.
So Mark, do you got any more thoughts on the fourth one, or should we go on to Scott?
No, I would go on to Scott. That's fine.
All right, Scott, go ahead and give me what you got.
Okay, well, this was the other one that I had history with because a few years ago I was writing, I guess a little more than a few years ago, I was writing for a website called Cold Cuts. Back when I did get screeners, I actually got a screener of this. I got the DVD, and I had it laying around. And I said, I don't remember a damn thing about this when I had to review it for that site. I'll watch it again, okay. And so I don't know if any of you had this. Did any of you have the host segments on the prints that you watched?
Yeah.
Yes.
The trauma host, yeah.
Did you have the shot where Julie Strain is hosting this, just chuck nude?
Yes.
Where she's doing her hair?
Yeah, and it was not a very titillating chuck nude.
It was not flattering in the slightest.
No. But that was kind of interesting because she got to because she actually did talk about how she got in trouble with SAG for doing this film.
Yes.
Because by then it was her second featured role, and after about a half dozen other roles.
Well, because she mostly did Andy Sedaris movies.
Yeah, and this was not a SAG film, obviously. You know.
What? Well, yeah, because she had done Double Impact as well as the Steven Seagal film before that. So, I mean, she was
in the Union.
She was in the Union.
Yes, she was.
You know? Let's see. I'm just going to try to make, because this is the one where I actually did write notes on my tablet.
So I can't wait to hear this.
So I'm going to try to make notes. So I'm going to try to make sense of my notes while also trying to get through the weird autocorrect. And the beginning that we were talking about with the total idiots, with the guy climbing the tree and the girl going to his trunk, totally drawn out. That thing lasted for 8 minutes.
It was actually almost 15.
Oh my God! Okay,
because I literally just watched this again last night, and the whole first scene, it was just it went on forever. It could have been wrapped up in 5.
What? Who is this? What?
Yeah, the dude that's walking around the woods just saying the same thing, and he climbs up a tree and then knocks himself out. It was just oh my God, this is so dumb.
It should have been a 2-minute scene. It should have been a 2-minute scene. Done. Boom. Credits. You know. And it went on forever and ever and ever. All these films, that's a big problem, is that they're all too drawn out. Every single one of these films should have been 80 minutes or less.
Should have been 40 minutes max. This should have been a TV series.
I know, but just giving him the benefit of the doubt for feature film, whatever. Director, he may have gone on to do some, and show some technical prowess. As I'll see Punk, I will tell you, one of the shots that I love in that movie is when they do the pan of still pictures over that party, you know, and everything like that. It's great, This, there's nothing, because it almost seemed like he didn't know what to do, because the sets just seem so cramped.
Absolutely, I agree with you on that.
It almost seems like he says, I don't know, I guess a master shot, and he just sticks with master shots for most of the film. Aside from a couple little flourishes, when boom, all of a sudden they're fucking in the elevator. Because that scene does come out of nowhere, oh yeah, sure, I can meet you, yeah, no problem. Waka chicka, waka chicka, waka chicka. Just damn.
We didn't even talk about the fucking end scene where all of a sudden the witchcraft comes into focus, the whole cult aspect at the very ass end of this movie.
A little late, finally we get some witchcraft. Yeah, I mean, there's that big thing. I could actually make some sense of the concluding fight scene, which is saying more than I could for any of the other three, at least. We have a controversial disc jockey in this movie. They say, ooh, he's so controversial. He works for college radio.
Okay, let's break this scene down, because this scene, I actually wrote on this scene. This is like, so he calls this radio station, and this DJ assistant or secretary or whatever this fucking idiot that picked up the phone was the worst radio employee ever.
Yeah,
why the fuck did he like, now wait, dude, I don't know what you're talking about, 'cause and he like was the dumbest fucking, like, why did he act so like such an asshole to Will?
Hi, yeah, I need an address on Robert Santera.
How the hell am I supposed to know where he lives? I mean, he's great and all, he gets his stuff in on time, but I just don't have an address on him. It just doesn't work that way, okay?
What time does he come in at night?
He doesn't. He broadcasts from someone else.
You don't even know where your disc jockey is broadcasting from?
Look, it's just not important to us, okay? We're just happy to get those ratings. It's like we're a small college station, and we're getting like incredible recognition, you know what I mean? I mean, it's fucking hot right now. People fucking love me, you know? Okay? You got it? That's it. I'm done. I'm late for my art class. Goodbye.
You know what's funny about this? We have not talked about Will Spanner at all. This entire freaking, like, we've been talking about Julie Strain the entire time, and this, like, William is literally the main character in this film, and we haven't talked to him once because he's so fucking forgettable.
He's a dull. He's a blank slate. He's so dull, you know, and his performances are so terrible that, you know, there's not really much to say. You know, it's like, yeah, he was a big walking stick of butter in the first 2-3 movies, and he's a big walking stick of butter in this movie too. You know,
right?
Right. There's two girls in this. Let's not forget, because there's the Julie Strain character playing Belladonna, and she's supposedly the femme fatale character.
And a big star, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then there's, who sucks. And then there's the supposed good girl until the reveal and everything. You know, spoilers again. But we lose her, the good girl, for the longest time, and then there's like this big impassioned plea, like, if you love her, you'll help her. Yeah. We haven't seen this chick for like an hour at this point.
No, and the thing is,
if he loves her, he would have freaking called.
No, he doesn't love her. The romantic connection was with Belladonna.
Right.
There was no, because they get together at the end. It's like the whole.
But
that's the thing about these movies, is that William Spanner is a total fucking womanizer. Every single movie, he's got a new girl. And then at the end of the movie, it seems like, you know, they're passionately in love. Then the next movie happens, and he's already moved on to somebody else.
He's Indiana Jones without the charisma or the athletics or anything, really.
Hey, man, he's the Warlock lawyer.
Yes, he is Warlock. He is Matlock, Warlock lawyer.
Yeah. Oh my God, can you imagine that? You know, Matlock Warlock. That would be
awesome. So go ahead, Scott.
Griffin should have been Will Spanner. Damn it!
Yeah, go ahead, Scott. Wrap up your notes, and we'll get on to wrapping this one up.
And the very last thing I'm going to say is that they tried to make a big thing about the blues mythology, the classic, you know, Robert Johnson story about the crossroads and everything.
Oh my gosh!
And they talk about the blues. I love the blues, guys. This was not the blues, not even close.
It was nowhere near. No.
This wasn't even one of those Steven Seagal blues albums. Okay.
No, this was like early '90s Black Velvet. That kind of shit. That's what the kind of blues this was.
Yeah, Black Velvet was like, you know, went down to the crossroads, you know, Hellhound on My Trail compared to this shit, let me tell you.
Yeah, their excuse for the blues thing and trying to work that in there, I'm like, really? we're trying this now. Out of everything else we're doing with this, we've got to invoke the name of Johnson. You know, we've got to talk about the Crossroads. Let's leave that alone, okay?
Yeah, it's just as cheap as all the rest of the films where they just, like we said before, where they had to inject something in there to give some sort of depth to it, or give some sort of backstory of some witchery or some supernatural or demonic presence in there, in which really this film had none of that at all, and it was just the very last 5 to 10 minutes where all of a sudden he winds up at some basement that's lit like the first Hellraiser, and he goes downstairs and there's some dude dressed in the dude from the Ghoulies attire, where he's like the king priest, and there's some like organ harvesting cult, and this movie, like, upon watching it for the second time last night, it was just like, this was fucking, I didn't like this at all. But I can get, it's trashy, and Julie Strain has an appeal, she's kind of fun, but at the same time, this is, Brian, I don't know why you like this at all. I don't know, buddy. I just don't know. You want to get here? I'm going to give final thoughts to you on Witchcraft 4, Brian. Go for it.
It's not good. Just like everyone said, it's not good, but I think it's sleazier than the other three, which has something to say about that. I think anyone who loves, that golden age of Scream Queens, Julie Strain, she's got a much bigger part than Delia Shepard had in number 2. She at least has some kind of presence. Yeah, I just even enjoyed, I just thought that opening scene was so ridiculous, like you said, so long, but for some reason, just the whole awkwardness of it charmed me. Like, there was even a point, like, it was edited so badly, the girl is at the phone booth talking with the guy who eventually, attacks her and throws her in the trunk.
Yeah, and the phone booth that's in the middle of bumfuck nowhere.
And then, like, Pete, the boy who was fallen out of the tree, wakes up and gets up and starts to move, and it almost looks like he's in the same scene with them, the way they edited it.
Yeah.
It's really, really badly done. Even that kind of charmed me a bit. It was just so awkward and so no, is it great? Not at all. But I did kind of like the sleaziness. I did like some of the noir touches. But even that was not consistent. It's the same thing with all these films. They'll have a certain energy going, and then they'll put in the silly Three Stooges slapstick bit, and then they'll go along and they'll throw something else in there. And that the noir stuff was not. That would have maybe made it even like a good film, or at least a better film, if they had played with that consistently. It would pop in here and there. Like, I think the scene with Julie Strain in the dressing room had a very more vibe to it, and there was a couple other moments, but even that wasn't consistent. So
no, and especially the ending where all of a sudden it looks like Belladonna and William are together, and then we go back to the noir. He's in a smoky, dimly lit office, and he's giving his narration VO about what ends up happening, and he's not with Belladonna. She went on and did something else, and he's back to whatever he does, and that's it. It's the end. It's like, what was the point of anything we just watched for the last hour and a half?
And I think the one thing we've missed is I don't want to live in the town where he lives, because they have the dumbest cops in the universe in this town. That's carried through all the films. I mean, this fourth one, they think the guy did it. Well, we've got our guy. We've got our guy. We've got our guy. Last 5 minutes, we don't have our guy. You're right.
Yeah. Everyone died in the basement, but the cop doesn't even like question him. He killed them all. He fucking killed them all. And the cop's like, all right, see you later.
It was just like the cops in number 3. It's like, no, he did it. No, he did it. No, he did it. Oh, yeah, by the way, this guy confessed. I guess he didn't do it.
No.
Oh, well.
Because he's Matlock Warlock lawyer, he has carte blanche. He can just do whatever the fuck he wants. What's the point?
Seems like a never-ending cycle. I'm back to pretending to be normal. Pete's out of jail, but he'll be going into a psychiatric ward. He couldn't take the news that his sister was the one who had his parents killed. seems she felt she had been abused, so she sold out to Santana to get the job done, and worked for him ever since. Belladonna has a recording contract, and Hovis, well, Hovis and I play cards on an occasional full moon.
Hi, I'm John Waters. Hi, this is Dolph Lundgren.
Hi, I'm Lance Henriksen.
Hi, this is Keith Gordon. Robert Kuhn. Miguel Ferrer.
Nancy Allen.
Robert Davi.
Richard Elfman.
Ileana Douglas.
Patrick Warburton. Zwingshauser. Cliff DeYoung. Steve Railsback. Mr. T. William Cass.
If you haven't been listening to the Projection Booth podcast, you're missing out. Each week, the Projection Booth brings you in-depth discussions of some of the most interesting movies ever made. I'm Mike White. No, the other one. I'm the guy who wrote the film fanzine Cashiers to Cinemark since 1994. Since early 2011, I've been co-hosting the Projection Booth podcast. Try us, won't you?
I never try anything. I just do it.
Visit the Projection Booth at projection-booth.com.
Excuse me, what are you doing? Are you looking for porn again?
No.
Well, what is that I see?
It's not porn. It's the badassboobsandbodycounts.com website. I happen to be looking at the reviews in the boobs section of the site.
They have a section of the site dedicated to boobs?
Yes, they do. They cover exploitation films in the boobs category, action films in the badass category, and horror in the body counts category.
What's that review you're reading now?
This is Andy Sidaris' Malibu Express. See at the bottom of the review there? They list how many boobs appear in the film. In this case, it's 22 pairs. This is definitely a film I want to see.
You mean just for boobs?
Yeah, just for boobs.
What's that other option, BB and BC podcast?
That's the great thing about the site. If you're not into reading the reviews, you can listen to them via the web, on your mobile device, through iTunes, and even Stitcher Smart Radio. And they cover the same types of films, lesser-known action, exploitation, and horror cinema. So yeah, to answer your question, I wasn't cruising porn.
That's too bad.
What's too bad?
That you weren't cruising for porn.
Why?
Because I was feeling kind of horny.
Ooh, wait. Get back here. Hey, get back here.
So let's wrap this up, boys. We just watched the first 4 Witchcraft films in what is going to be, I'm hoping, 3 or 4 episodes total of this. We're going to try and do 4 of these movies a piece. I understand if you boys bow out at some point, but I think it's going to be an endurance test to try and see if we can actually do this and get through these movies. I think it's really funny. One of the people I really hoped would be here tonight, unfortunately couldn't make it because she contracted, she got mono. and she couldn't do it. So Tanya Atomic, the Grand Mistress of Astro Radio Z, she wrote me something that's kind of like a synopsis of what her thoughts were on these first 4 movies, because she actually watched these movies and then couldn't come on the episode. I felt so guilty and so bad. It was just like, Tanya, I know you can't do this, but if you want to write me something, I'll gladly read it on the show. So this is what Tanya had to say about her experience with these first 4 movies. Witchcraft, the series, bewilders me. The movies read like low-budget direct-to-video movies, which maybe they are. They have exciting supernatural characters and plots, and yet they are super slow and boring, almost a chore to watch. The sequels so far are way better than the first film, but the sequels are mildly entertaining at best. These are not so bad it's good, because they're not that bad. The acting, effects, locations, costumes, etc. are all so-so, and together are equal bland. The ideas are intriguing, and I want these movies to be better than they are. They somehow lack drive. There is nothing that really draws me into the story. The fact there have been so many sequels is a wonder to me. They are not terrible movies, but they are not that good and not that bad that they are that terrible. I think she summed it up perfectly. Like, literally, that is my exact thought on these movies.
They're just
kind of there.
They exist to exist. That's about it.
It's obvious this was just a business. That's all this was pure commerce. These first 4 films, and obviously the rest of them are probably even worse. I'm hoping that some of them are fun. I know I've seen part 13, and that was actually really fun. But oh my gosh, these were a chore to sit through. These were really chore. So let's go down the line and let's give our rankings 1 through 4 on each of these films, and then we'll call it a night, boys. So I'm going to start with Mr. Brian Kirst. Mr. Brian Kirst, if we were to go 1 through 4, what would you go your best to worst?
4, 2, 1, 3.
Glenn Buettner.
2.
If you want to lump all the rest of them in as the last, that's fine with me.
3, 4, 1.
Okay. All right. Mark.
2, 4, 1, 3.
Scott Davis.
I think we might all have different ratings. 2, 4, 3, 1.
See, this is the weird thing about this episode, is that I started off by saying that the first one was probably the best one, but I think through talking through this, oh no, I don't agree. I'm sticking to my guns. 1, 2, 3, 4. Literally,
I
right down the line. Right down the line is that this was just like, for me, it was like the first one, okay, this was watchable. The second one, this is trashy, but it's a real piece of shit. Third one is like, oh my god, this is unwatchable. And the fourth one is, this isn't even a fucking movie. So yeah, it was 1, 2, 3, 4 for me. Witchcraft. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're doing this to ourselves, boys. I'm sorry. I apologize. I hope you will come on to the next episode where we do 5 through 8. Obviously, there may be an episode in between where, I do a palate cleanser where we talk, because I kind of have an idea of another series of episodes that I want to do. I'm not going to talk about that yet, but we'll see, because I want to give us the time to be able to, cleanse our souls a little bit of the first 4, and then jump into 5 through 8. And that may be in a month or two's time when we do that episode. But I really appreciate you guys going through this experiment with me, which is the best way that I can put this. I'm hoping that I can get Tanya on to the next one. Hopefully she's better by that point. And we missed you, Tanya. We wish you could have been here. I was talking to my dear friend Jason Paul Collum, that I work with, and hopefully I can get him on the next episode because he likes these movies.
Okay.
No. In the way that Brian likes these movies. They're trashy and they're kind of fun in a trashy kind of way. So I'm hoping I can get him on the next episode. But in order to wrap this up, anyone want to give their final thoughts on this? Do we want to just go down the line, each of us give our final thoughts? Let's start with Brian. Go ahead.
Right now in Chicago, we are going through just really freezing temps, blizzard, and just it's a rough winter. And you know what? Watching the Witchcraft films is just a little bit better than that. So there you go. That's my wrap up.
Oh my gosh, I feel like the biggest asshole.
No, actually, Derrick, no. I had a good time. You know, these are. If you want me to be semi-serious, this was kind of what really sucked me into loving exploitation and horror films. Were these types a little bit better than this, honestly? But I'm recognizing a lot of the figures that I really, really loved when I was first falling in love with exploitation films and B movies and horror films, and so it wasn't a huge trial by any means. It was cool to see Delia Shepard and Julie Strain. I think this next one has an even lower budget woman who used to be in the Scream Queens illustrated books.
Oh yes,
Karen Tayloran, I think, is in this Witchcraft 5. So I'm having a good time. So The first was my attempt at humor answer, and the second is my honest, from the heart, true blue answer. Is that it's been kind of fun. So there we go.
I appreciate that, Brian. I'm glad you're buttering it up for me, so I don't feel so guilty about this. So, Glenn, go ahead. Give me your final thought. Give me your scale 1 to 10.
Oh God, here we go.
I don't even have a scale of 1 to 10 for this. A broken crack pipe jabbed up my ass? I don't know. But the thing is, they were awful. But the thing is that, to alleviate some of your guilt, the fact is,
Thank you so much.
Well, no, it's that, yeah, they're terrible. But the thing is that I watch these and they're terrible, and I can almost feel it because it's $80,000, even when it was made, in the 90s. $80,000 was still not that much movie to shoot a movie.
No, that's a very small budget at that time.
I look at that and then I look, how much did fucking Uwe Boll spend on Blood Rain 4 or whatever the fuck it was, and that pile of shit that thing was. And look at some of the shitty movies that have budgets, 10, 20, 30 times this, that are just as bad. They just happen to have better effects.
Right.
The stories are just as awful. The acting is just as awful. Just that they had an effects budget. And I know better movies can be made on the cheap, but it's also the fact it's like, I've watched enough Corman films and enough of those other films in my life to be like, yeah, there's a lot of shitty movies out there. These are not the worst movies I've seen. So you got that for you. I have seen worse things.
Wow, what a recommendation. Mark the Movie Man, give me your final thoughts.
Well, initially going into this, I was going to say this is like Dante's level of hell, and where, they're all bad, but you have the level where you get hangnails pulled, and then there's the level where you're face down in your own shit, and, these movies are...
I don't remember that part of the book.
Somewhere in between. I wasn't initially going to say that, but after we've discussed it, and after we talking about it, and thinking about them more, I think it truly does sum up Tanya was the best. These are movies that are just there. They're not so bad they're good, but they're not so bad they're bad. They're there. I can see
Except for part 4.
Except for part 4. But,
hey!
No, 3 was 3.
Part 4 is my zombie ass.
3, thank you. 3 I did enjoy. I enjoyed the least out of all of them. You could see what they were trying to do. They were just being mass-produced. Yeah. Is the thing is that this is a series where they were just mass-producing these, especially as you get into the later ones, to where it's just a brand name now, where they say it's Witchcraft only because it's got the one main character in there, and they try to tie it back to old lady spitting grape juice. But, you know, I see where they were trying with it. And there is a bit of almost quaintness to them for that time, but at the same time, they're forgettable, they're skippable. You know, they're not ones that I would recommend to someone who is really into B horror or that. Maybe 2, but
I would if I hated them.
They're just there. I didn't totally want to gouge my eyes out, but at the same time, I was like, there's nothing there. It's just there. That's the best way to put it for me. Was they were just there for me. I enjoyed bits and pieces of them, which if you put enough of those bits and pieces together, you probably got one good, really enjoyable movie for me spanned out over these 4. So,
Scott Davis, it's up to you.
All right, you know, real briefly, because you're feeling bad about this there, Derrick, and you shouldn't, because, okay, here's how I'm going to look at it, okay? Everybody in their lives hopes that they have some kind of rite of passage, you know, something that's really difficult, really punishing, but, you know, when you're done with it, you, like, feel stronger because you made it through it, you know. Some people walk on hot coals, some people go on walkabouts, some climb Everest. We get to watch all 13 Witchcraft movies. And to that I don't hate you. I don't hate you, sir. I say hit me with your best shot. I cannot wait for the next 4. Bring it on.
Yes. Scott, thank you so much. You just rose me up on a bed of feathers and in a cloud, and that's amazing. Thank you so much.
I just had an epiphany
from the heart.
Epiphany.
An epiphany on these films. It's almost as if they were seeing in the future the whole thing of him finding his power, and his power is that he has no fucking power. It's like now where everyone's fucking special, but no one's fucking special. It is the perfect reflection of
a nihilistic film
life.
This is a nihilistic series.
Is this like The Incredibles? If everybody's incredible, nobody is.
People tell us that we're special. We're not fucking special.
No, he's the generic. The funny thing is, he's the generic Iron Man.
Here. We're just here. That's it. We're
generic Iron Man. There you go.
Yeah, he has that glowing pentagram on his chest like the generic Iron Man. Oh my God. Okay, so I'll finish this up. Glenn, that was amazing. Thank you so much, my friend. This series, so far up to this point, I agree with all of you. I really do. I think, you know, the reason why I chose this for us to do was, one, nobody else is talking about these movies. I thought it'd be interesting for people of our age that grew up seeing these things on the shelf, and I am a masochist when it comes to certain films, and I like to kind of like push myself to the limit and say, hey, I like shitty movies. Can I stand watching all 13 of these films? So it's kind of like Scott said, it's a rite of passage. Can I make it through 13 of these movies that I know more than likely I'm not going to like at all? Am I setting myself up for failure? Am I setting myself just to goof? Am I an asshole that's just looking to be a dick on air for my show? You know that that's not something that I like to do on this show. Film Jerks, it's called Film Jerks. We can be jerks on it. This show, Astro Radio Z, I like to hold a little higher regard. I like to think that, you know, we're giving fair shakes to everything. I actually made a good and bad list for every single film. I mean, let's be honest, Witchcraft 4 only had one good point. I didn't want to come on and just be an asshole and sit and rip these things apart, but I also want us to, like, have fun and be honest that, you know what, these are not good movies. Let's not make any allusions to that. The Witchcraft series, a series of films where there's pentagrams on the cover that were literally sold by the covers. Mm-hmm. They were literally sold by the covers. I hope, like Scott and like Brian, like every one of us, that the coming ones are better. I'm hoping, that is my dear hope, is that we find, like, they just give up and they just go for broke, you know. But as far as I know, all of these films center around Will Spanner. And every single last one of them. So they all become this kind of like movie of the week You know, he's a lawyer, he's a PI, or whatever the fuck he ends up deciding he wants to be. And then there's some new, like, malevolent force that he's got to sit and overcome.
I think a female detective becomes the main. Stephanie Beaton, Detective Lucy Lutz. I think she's the main figure for 3 of them.
Oh, really?
Like 9, 10, 11, yeah.
Because I know the one that I watched at the end, 13, Will Spanner is the main character.
Yeah, he might still be in it. It looks like but I think she's like the first. I could be wrong, but I think she's the first like major character, female character who recurs. And
well, that's exciting. I hope that's the case. Then I'm looking forward to this because this Will Spanner character is a real pile of bullshit.
I can't wait for Will Spanner, the astronaut. When are we going to get that one?
Oh, my God. I hope they go in space. I really do at some point.
Yeah. It takes a bit, but I think by Witchcraft 10, he's not in them anymore. And it's this Detective Lucy Lutz who kind of takes over.
Oh, awesome. I'm really looking forward to that. That's very exciting to me.
You just gave Derrick something to look forward to.
Yeah. There's some hope. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, of this very dark tunnel. So I hope you guys, listeners of Astro Radio Z, enjoyed this. Look forward to at least 2 or 3 more episodes of this. We'll see. Hopefully, I'm hoping to do 1 through 4. Obviously, was this episode 5 through 8. Then I may torture us and pound the last 5 movies into one episode.
Ooh.
I may do that to make it a trilogy of episodes. We'll see how that goes, guys.
Just to add to the pay that's upcoming, looking at IMDb ratings, the highest rated one is a 3.
And which one is that, Glenn?
I think that was number 6.
You know what the funny thing is? I started watching that one, and that one was...
10 is like a 1.6. We go as low as a 1.2. Which for IMDb is pretty freaking low, because people who rate stuff on IMDb have 0 fucking taste generally.
Oh, absolutely. It's usually not a barometer for any sort of taste whatsoever.
No, but
so maybe it means they're brilliant. Like, if the people have no taste who are rating them, maybe they're brilliant. Maybe they get brilliant as we go on.
Oh my gosh, I sure hope that's the case. I
don't think so, but...
I don't think so either. I think you're 100% true on this. So boys, let's do some pimpage to round out this episode, and let's call it a night. Brian Kirst, where can we find you, my friend?
Facebook, Big Gay Horror Fan, www.biggayhorrorfan.com. I've got an essay in a book called Hidden Horror, which is on Amazon. That's getting a lot of buzz lately. William Lustig did the intro, and Robert Englund's got a quote, and I guess it's doing pretty well on Amazon. But
nice.
There's some amazing essays in that.
Yes, there are.
Some really, really cool films. Pretty Poison and The House That Screamed and
Pieces.
But just some really, really some cool films that I really love that people have written about. So.
Very excited about that one, and a lot of those pieces are by friends of ours in the filmmaking community. So definitely go out there. Aaron Christensen, a dear friend of ours, one of the main actors in a film that I helped out on called Dead Weight. He wrote this book. Amazing. I can't wait to get my mitts on this thing. So awesome. Glenn Buettner, where can we find you?
You can find me on YouTube at the B Movie Bunker. I'm finally back from my long winter hiatus. And that's pretty much it right now. I mean, and aside from doing this and Film Jerks and the Spoiler Room that I do with Mark the Movie Man and a couple other people, that's where you can find me right now.
Mark the Movie Man.
Mark the Movie Man. You can find me at specialmarkproductions.com, on YouTube /specialmark. I'm also now a regular staff member on WeLiveFilm.com. I'm hosting Horror Thursdays there, where I'm bringing unusual films to the masses. So far, they haven't kicked me off yet. Give
them time.
They give them time. So you can find me on WeLiveFilm.com. I've got written reviews up there as well. Things are going really well with that. And on Twitter at MovieManiac3D as well. We got some great stuff all over. You get to see Glenn on the Spoiler Room. Those are fun usually. Derrick occasionally shows up. Yeah, that's where you can find me at.
And Mr. Scott Davis, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to try to make this quick because I am out of booze here. So.
Yeah, so am I. I'm really thirsty right now, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Same here.
All right, you can catch me at filmgeekcentral.com, where I talk about a lot of all films, really, including some mainstream stuff. And I also you can catch me on YouTube at Movieocrity. That's with an O. It's a show I'm doing all about exploitation films. Season 1 is wrapped. I am working on Season 2 right now.
Awesome.
Really excited about it because I think it's
cool.
going to be really good. So that's really good. Movieocrity.
Very good. I enjoy that quite a bit.
Oh, thank you.
And I am Mr. Derrick Carey. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Bishop77, on Facebook. If you want to learn more about Astro Radio Z, go to our Tumblr page, in which I list everything from Film Jerks to all the episodes of Astro Radio Z, including some old ones with my former co-host, Corey J. Udler. You want to go check out what Astro Radio Z is about, go to that. Also, check out, we're on Twitter. Astro Radio Z is on the Twitter. Please go follow. Go send us out there. If you like Astro Radio Z, get a hold of me. Let me know. I'd love to have any of you guys that want to come on and talk about Witchcraft films. Please, come on. I'd love to torture some more people with these films. So, yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, blah, blah, blah. If you'd like, you can support some of the films that I'm involved with. Swamphead. We're going to be at, Corey and I are going to be at Cinema Wasteland coming up in April.
Dude, I'll see you there.
Are you going to be there, Brian?
I'm going to be there, man.
Fuck yeah, dude. Let's try not get in any rape dungeons this time.
Okay, yeah.
Let's make a pact right now that you and I do not go in any rooms like we did last year where guys have vodka gummies.
You were so nice. You were like, Brian, you can go now. You can get out of here.
Oh my God! And the thing is, I was only in there because Corey
was just like smoozing it up and thinking nothing was wrong, and I'm getting nervous, and you're like, you can go now.
Yeah, I could see the fear in your eyes.
I was trying to leave, but every time I would go, Corey would be like, Brian, where are you going? Come on, man, come on.
That's why I looked right at you, and I'm just like, Brian, get out of here. You're the only one who's gotten out right now. Somebody needs to survive.
Like Zell being hunted by lions.
Yeah.
Derrick took one for me. He let me escape, and...
Yeah, so let's make a pact right now. No rape dungeons. Let's just have a good time.
Sounds good.
Awesome. I'll definitely see you at Cinema Wasteland. We'll be there. We're hoping in this year, because we have Hole in the Wall that's going to be coming out. Actually, I just got word today that the Slasher Studio boys finished up their segment for Hole in the Wall. I should be seeing that in the next week. I can't wait to see that. One of the last shorts filmed by my dear friend Justin Propp, who did Swamphead, is going to be filming in 2 weeks. So we were hoping to screen it at Cinema Wasteland, but I don't think it'll be done in time. So coming out this year, Hole in the Wall. Go check out at BriarwoodEntertainment.com. You can get Swamphead. Breaking Glass Pictures has Screaming in High Heels. Blah, 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 blah. We make movies. Go buy them. Support independent art. For me and everyone that was on this episode of Astro Radio Z, thank you for paying attention and listening to what I'm sure is going to be 2.5 hours of pure nonsense about shit films. So, catch you next time.
And my name's not Billy Boy.